What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 9. I am your host, Marcus, alongside with Sean, and today we are talking about how you see me. Before we get started, Sean, how you doing today, man?
I'm awesome. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right, man. Tired as always. Like I said, we were talking about off camera, like just trying to not get caught up in the grind, right? And try to
Yeah,
provide yourself time off or go try that thing that you wanted to try that you've been talking about for months on end, right?
definitely. Try that coffee, that nitro coffee that I just had. It's crazy, man.
Oh yeah, where'd you get
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I just had it for the first time, and I guess we could say at Starbucks. The girl said we can't get you a venti because it's just too much. So I'm like,
Oh
okay.
wow.
She said, yeah, we're not gonna give you a venti, and then you go ahead and pass out and sue us. I'm like, man, is it that
Is it
serious?
is all laced with like that much caffeine in it?
It's called nitro, dude. Like, and it's
Well,
cold.
see, normally when I have it, it's like always it's got like 2 shots of espresso in it aside from it. So
And that's the thing they give me. Like, I took it and I was like, okay. And now I actually, yeah. At first it was kind of intense. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I drank it. I was like,
started sweating a little bit.
yeah, I did. I started sweating, and then I was so hyper, I was forgetting things. Like, for real.
Nice.
So look, with all that being said, when we get off, I'm probably gonna get another one. That's bad, man. But yeah, I'm
For
doing
sure.
good, brother. How about yourself though? Far as you say you're tired, like, you know,
Yeah, just I've been getting back into the grind. I know of myself, like I've been taking like it's been so hot around here lately. Like I haven't been running, but I've been doing
mhm.
like treadmill work and stuff, which I don't mind doing, but I prefer to go running.
Yeah,
It's just been so hot, man. It's just I don't do well with the heat. Like I can run when it's like 10 degrees, but when it's like 100 degrees every day, it's a little bit harder to run.
yeah, definitely. Uh,
But so today's topic, how you see me. So this is a particular question that you brought up, Sean, that you think a lot of people are still struggling with, and I think it's something you and I kind of take for. It's like you if you do something so consistently, like you take for granted, right, and you forget like where you started. I think a lot of people are still at that particular point. Is trying to understand how you go about like doing things without the worry of other people judging you.
yeah, definitely. I think it's a big thing, man. Just not to allow yourself to be trapped in other people's thoughts. Because honestly, if they were worrying more about themselves, they would be trying to place what they think on you anyhow. It's a dangerous thing because if we allow ourselves to be trapped within people's thoughts, we're not going to really do the things that make us happy, what we find satisfying. We're always going to think about what they're going to say, what they're going to think. And, we
Yeah, I
get
would
one.
agree with.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We get one life, man. We get one life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, most definitely. I think a lot of times, even for myself, like I've made some big changes, especially over the past couple of months, ever since essentially kind of since we started the podcast. And I know a lot of people. I know specific people have made comments about things indirectly towards the things I've been doing, and you gotta learn to tune it out, right? Like I was thinking about this when you brought this up, and I was like, when was that defining moment? I kind of went back, like I think it was like in like when do I first recall like seeing like people eventually like essentially taking that step, right? Like not being afraid of what other people's judgment. And I remember I want to say it was like third grade is when I like know when I was aware of it, right? Like I remember like you always have people in groups
mhm.
and people would be talking about stuff, and then if it's something in particular, again instead of any kind of volunteer, right, who wants to volunteer, and nobody wants to volunteer, and so you essentially get picked, right?
Yeah,
But being said, like everybody's afraid, you can tell everybody's afraid of judgment, and all you have to do is and something I've talked about before, but something a lot of the different readings and stuff that I've been going over lately, they've been talking about being more of an observer of things. And I think at a young age, I observed stuff a lot, and people used to say I was shy, but I wasn't. I observed a lot. You noticed at that age that I was observing that people, you can see like the emotion in their face would change, and someone would say, "Hey, do you want to volunteer?" And because most of the time, right, people would just look down, and I found I used to do that a lot when I was a kid, and when I looked at that moment, right, like, and I recalled that moment, like, I remember looking at people's faces and seeing the emotion just change right then and there within a second, right, of asking for volunteer. And it's because of the thought of judgment. And I remember saying, well, I'll do it. And then having the other kids remark and laugh and everything else about it. And I was like, well, at least I'm volunteering. I remember saying that too, at least I'm volunteering. And then they didn't say anything after that.
Yeah.
And I realized from that point, like, that's the way you have to be. Like, you just have to take the step. And I know there's always fear involved and stuff, but when is the first point in your life that you really recognize where people were like stepping away from the fear of judgment of others?
That's right. Myself, I can go back to elementary, how you said, like, just volunteering. But I think for me, uh, being married, just trying to do certain things and wondering what other people may think. You know what I mean? I see it all with people. I see it all the time, though. It gets so bad that people don't control their own thoughts at all. It's really just based upon what somebody else is going to think. All the way to the way you dress.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wear this because people are going to think this, but you like it. You know what I mean? I can't talk to this kind of person because others are going to say something, but you think they're a cool person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I always say, it's funny, not to get off topic, I talk to my kids about that. I said, I don't want you to get caught up in the popular kid thing, because most of the people who are quote unquote, I didn't have the issue, but most people quote unquote popular, they're always thinking about what people think. So they'll be cool with you up until you're not cool anymore. So you better be sure about yourself. Don't let other people's thoughts define you. You know what I mean? My kids play sports, but then they like other things. They like acting. When my oldest likes acting and stuff like that. I said, look, man, don't stop acting. You know what I mean? Because your friends don't do it. They probably wish they could. Because most of the time, people, they project things on you because they're either scared or it didn't work out for them, or they're just not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I would agree with that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people, and that's exactly it. Right? Like they've lived it, experienced it, and see, that's where it comes down to. Like, we all learn differently off of different experiences we had in our life, right? We build off of one experience to the next, and so this is what essentially makes us unique, right? And being said, worrying about the judgment of others has always been, like I said, I try to relate back to the moments when I started taking more control and in charge, as opposed to taking that back seat. And like you said, you live one life, and you might as well put it all out there, and you won't be able to do that with the thought of somebody else. And you can't please everybody. It doesn't matter, even if you're the best at what you do, you're not going to be able to please everybody, right? Someone's always going to say something about you, right? And I think even in the best people out there, right, the professional sports players, entertainers, all those people out there, right, there's always going to be somebody out there that's saying something negative. Again, like you said, projecting their thoughts and ideas of how they feel internally, not in particular issues that you may have or faults or whatever, but that your faults are not an issue, right? It's ultimately starts with, again, a lot of different things we talk about is just that mindset and how you proceed towards things, right?
Yeah, and then I want to say this. The people who do that usually, they have bad time management with their energy. Seriously,
Mhm.
like it's they're worried about the wrong things. Like you know what I mean? Because if we was to take a look at ourselves, we all. I mean, I speak for me. It's always something to work on, right? It's always something to get better at. So why would I be worried about somebody else unless I'm trying to help them? Other than that, it doesn't matter, man. Because they're doing the things that make them happy. If especially it's not affecting me, why do I even care? They're
Mhm.
taking chances. They like to do what they're doing, and then when you look at a lot of successful people, like we'll say certain people, like they're real to be successful. I believe in this culture that we are in now, you have to be innovative, right?
Mhm.
And when you're being innovative, most of the time you may be one step ahead or a few steps ahead of other people's thoughts, and you can't like uh, hold yourself back till they catch up. So you got to keep going.
Mhm.
Eventually, they'll come to you. Like for instance, have you ever had somebody you may have told them something 5 years ago, and they come to you 5 years later saying, "Yeah, man, like it's the greatest thing in the world," and you're like, "We talked about that. You said it was stupid," you
Yeah.
know. And then you just think to yourself like, "Dad, like I need to listen to myself more." And not to say that I'm always right, because that's definitely not the case. But we have to learn to bet on ourselves and take our chances, and you know, really make decisions based upon what we think and how it will affect the people who we take care of, not just random people. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't. I've never paid a bill to say this off. I've never paid one bill with a person's opinion ever.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that, and that's a good point you have there. Is that there are many different things I've done too, right? That seem far fetched, and I can see why a lot of people get turned off from that stuff, because I think a lot of times you got to disconnect from society sometimes. Some people don't like doing that, right? Because we don't want to disconnect from the herd, right? We feel we don't because there is a lot of judgment there, and so we do whatever the herd wants to do because it gives us that false sense of security, right?
Right.
Uh, but being said, like I said, years down the road, people gravitate towards those things, and it's like anything, right? Like Elon Musk, right? Like people hated him. Like
Yeah.
you go back 10 years, like there
But
was
he's crazy. Yeah.
yeah, he's crazy. Why would you do this and that? And now he's like king of
Look,
the world right now, right?
now
You
he's a
have to
winner
have
all of a sudden, right? He's not crazy anymore. He's a
that.
he's a heck of a guy, and yeah,
Yeah,
people like that are geniuses. But before he was foolish. He was a crazy guy talking
yeah.
about nonsense, and now look at him.
And
So
it goes for anything, right? Like there, you see that through everybody has that, especially if you try to go out and it's hard for like if you're trying to be an entrepreneur. And I know entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. I totally agree with that. And we've talked about this before about how some people just want to have the job, or maybe they just want to make change like that, make small incremental changes that are dramatic enough to improve their life, and they enjoy that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you ultimately still have to understand that some of those changes do require you to have to go against other people's judgment, right?
yeah, and
And
that's the thing. We have to have. We can't be so sensitive, right? We have to have thick skin
yeah,
because I'm not saying not to listen to people. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying have the right people around you. Have wise counsel in a sense. Don't just listen to any and everybody. You know what I mean? And the people that are important to you, they usually, or people who are wise, they ask the right questions. They don't tell you you're wrong all the time. They don't usually tell you you're wrong at all. They just ask you questions because you may be teaching them like me. Like I can learn. Like somebody may say something to me, and I may not fully understand it. Doesn't mean they're wrong or they're foolish. Maybe I'm not caught up. So let me ask. You know what I mean? Let me try to figure out where they're at in their thought patterns. I say that if I make that word real long, somebody's gonna laugh. Their thought patterns. I make, So I think it's real important, like you said, to be innovative, to be strong-willed, in a sense, minded, and just know that your happiness should be priority too. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, most definitely, because you're the only person that knows how to make yourself happy, right?
Yeah.
And when you start talking about those kind of things, as far as judgment and everything like that, it's I'm trying to really decipher it, because it's the fact that it's easier to talk about it
Yeah.
and try to provide perspective. And then I came across a quote this past week. I put it on my IG. I don't recall exactly what it says because I'm horrible. I don't memorize stuff, right? I don't try to memorize stuff if I can look it up, right? That's always been one of my rules. Like, if I can look it up, why memorize it, right? Because you need that space. Going back to the whole energy thing, right? Like, try to not waste energy on stuff that you can just look up. But ultimately, essentially, the quote talked about, you can read about stuff, you can watch a movie or whatever the case is, you'll get motivated, but it's not going to make change in your life till you actually go and start making it. It changes your thought process is ultimately what the quote talked about, right? Is by actually going and experiencing stuff is what's going to change your thought process, not just by watching a movie. Yes, it can give you that initial motivation and whatever to want to make a change, right? And it's just ultimately just going out and doing it. And if you want to make change against other people's judgment, like you said, you want to be around good people, people that challenge you to go forward. But not only that, but they also support you, right, in your thoughts and your ideas. If the people around you find aren't doing that, then you're around the wrong people. Ultimately, is what it is. And if they're putting all your thoughts and ideas down, then you need to make changes there. And it goes all internally. You have to start there and make those changes. And so start experiencing stuff to change your thought process on how things are. And you realize, man, I can actually do these things and not really be worried about what other people are doing. But it does require you to take an action that's going to change your thought process, that it's okay to do it. And that is when the light bulb clicks. That is when the magic happens, right? Not when
so much freedom, right?
You read about it or you hear about it, right?
It's a lot of freedom in that, like, because it's like, really, for me, it's like real bondage. I can remember thinking about doing certain things and what somebody's going to say, right? And that's horrible, because, like, at the end of the day, I feel like at that point you can become, quote unquote, an uninteresting individual, because you're really not. Who are you? You just a whole bunch of people's thoughts, and usually those are incomplete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the most important part is, like, how do you see yourself, and understanding, like, I say this to the very first. I know for me, I understand that I'm an imperfect person, always wanting to get better. So I understand that um, I'm not going to always get it right. I get that. But I am going to live my life, and I'm going to get better. I think those are the things that eventually leads you to be wise. Because you get it, and it gives you more compassion for other people. Because, I mean, sometimes you see somebody and you can talk to them, and maybe they don't get it. You may have advanced from a certain thought, and they have to try it, and that's fine. And you could be wrong, but the thing is, let them do them. And it kind of bothers me when I see people, and they're just living in other people's thoughts. Especially, like, they're good people, but they're too worried about, like, what is somebody going to say about me? Who gives a damn?
Well, it's anyway. Well, the biggest thing with that too, right? Well, like, when I talk about turning off the noise, it's turning off that voice in your head, right? And just going. I think you need to get to that point to where you need to practice being aware of that voice that comes up and then just shutting it down, right? It's a repetition thing that you have to do in the mind. The mindset is the same way. You have to work your mindset like you work your body. Like, if you don't do that, you're not aware of it. You may be aware of it, but you're still not taking action on it, right? You just let it occur. And so when it keeps happening over and over, you're conditioning yourself to accept what that voice is saying, as opposed to being aware and say, no, I'm going to correct it here, and then just shut it down. And it's a practice, right? All this stuff is a practice. If you're not doing that, then you can't then it is hard, and you are living somebody else's life, and you're allowing everybody else to dictate your life. And like, again, there's especially with like what we do and everything. You know, like me, right, going from where I was to where I am now. A lot of people are probably like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people think that, and I know a lot of people are some people are actually commenting on that. But being said, right, like we go about talking about it, and this whole like evolution, right? Where this is what this the current time we're living in right now. We're seeing everybody think this way. Everybody doesn't want to work a 9 to 5. Everybody, there is more people that are not going back to work right now than ever before. And this is a whole epidemic, whatever you want to call it, and people are changing to where, no, I don't want to go sit in traffic for an hour every day. And so the whole thought process as a whole, as a society, is changing, and people are wanting to do stuff on their own. And so I think we're kind of leaning towards that, to where people are starting to think, well, the masses is starting to change, so it's okay, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you need that shift in the herd for everybody to accept. And it's something that we talked about how we're forward thinking and thinking a couple steps ahead. And at this given time, someone may not agree, but a couple of years down the road, they start agreeing. And now the herd is starting to shift that way. We're like, oh, well, that makes a lot more sense. And it's okay. Everybody else is saying it, so now it's okay. And then at that point, your thoughts and ideas have changed and shifted further down the road. And so those people that once were questioning, what your thought process was, uh, they start accepting it, and then they start
Yeah.
actually looking towards you to, well, what are your next thoughts and ideas? And they try to make movements along with you at that point further down the road. But you definitely have to start from a place where you are, you have to practice it, right? And I'm trying to think of the best way. What would you say was the best way to like practice going against what people think of you? Because ultimately that's what it's about.
I think it's, as you were saying, I was thinking about it too, and I think about like how I've been able to like progress. I just did certain things every day. You know what I mean? So you got to take that first leap, right? And then it's activities. You do it constantly. Um, you have to practice, like you said. I'm not gonna use the same word. You have to do it every day, like, because and then the more you do it, I feel like the more you're gonna become aware. Like, hey, I'm only doing this because they're saying this, or I'm only not going to do this because of what somebody's going to say. Let me do it. You know what I mean? Let me just do it today.
How important do you feel it is to have like an anchor, someone to like really like cheer you on? Now we've talked. I know you and I've talked about like you have to be your own cheerleader and stuff like that. But how important do you think having someone in your corner helps you kind of overcome that into making change and not worrying about people's judgment?
I think it's extremely important. Um, I, I think it's extremely important. I think, but we have to really first try to, because we can't look for other people in a sense. I think we
Mhm.
have to really dig deep in ourselves and believe in ourselves and create that, because then we'll create that energy. Once we start
Yeah.
believing in ourselves, we'll get people that'll be there. Very seldom, like we get lucky, quote unquote, and we have somebody from the beginning, like always rooting us on, right? That's cool, but we have to, because at some point we're going to be by ourselves. I think we're all going to face that. Even if we start off in the beginning, we have somebody, then eventually, so we have to create that kind of energy, like, and be transparent and just telling people, like, look, man, I'm jumping out there. I'm not telling you to even follow me on this. I'm going to do it though.
Yeah.
You can watch me and see how it works out and stuff like that. You can check on, you can do all that, but I'm going to do it. And I think so. And like, it's funny, you'll meet people from all over the world that just, it's like that energy connects.
Mhm.
But we have to first, I think one of the first steps is really believing in ourselves. Because if we don't believe in ourselves, that's a rough thing. Like, because at the end of the day, I think we become leaders, and I think I'm just saying it's just very important to like definitely believe in ourselves and also surround ourselves with people who believe in us. Um, I think like we worked together a while ago, but I ran back into you. I have good people in my circle because I I started to get it and click. I think that's what I believe. I started to understand that I have to believe in myself, and then also I want good for others. And that's a lot of things that, like you say, people have to control their mindset. Sometimes things are not even happening for people because they just think they just think too negatively of everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay to want people to do good. I mean, it's inspiration for me personally.
Yeah, I think your intentions always have to be there. But like for me, even if you can't, we talk about like finding people and like-minded people, and sometimes I get it, you just can't, right? Like some people, for whatever reason, I mean, we have the internet, so it's much easier to do that. But ultimately, one thing I've read this book. I used to read Napoleon Hill is one of my favorite authors, and he would talk about how he essentially had every night he would have a meeting, right, with like the most influential people or the most aspiring people in his life, right? Like he used to have like meetings with like Abraham Lincoln and like a bunch of other different people in his, not actual people that he's met, but people that he's read about. And then they would have this conversation every night, right, about what he was doing, where he was going, stuff like that. So if you can provide like a visual, right, because your brain doesn't know the difference between what you actually see and what you can actually create in your mind. And if you create that scenario in which your idols or the people you look upon, right, maybe it's Sean, right, or maybe it's me, I mean, whoever it is, if you're not actually having that conversation, just have that conversation with these different people in your life and allow yourself to kind of critique what you're doing, but only listen to those voices, right? You shut everything else off, and I think that's ultimately what we're trying to state here is that you need to know when to shut off everything else and just look upon that. And again, if you don't have anybody to create that environment yourself and visualize, this is why I talk about visualization, all this stuff. It doesn't matter what you do, right? You can be in sports, it's big in sports. You can do it in business. It's also very big in business, which I think is a lot of people don't quite understand that. Like you have to be visual in that aspect, that you have to be able to see where you're going or visualize that. And just anything in life, right? Like you want to get healthy, you need to visualize it. You need to put yourself there, live it in the moment, and act like you're living in it today. It doesn't matter what you're aiming for, what you're shooting for. If you're trying to overcome, um, things about people's judgments, imagine yourself what you would be like if you didn't go off of other people's judgments, right? What would that person look like? What would they be doing? How do they act, right? And visualize yourself that way every single day. You need to do it every day because you need to uncondition your mind. The problem is we forget that everything that we've done to this point is conditioning our bodies and our minds to um, a certain set point, and so you need to get out of that set point by conditioning in it, putting in reps to change that, to change the wiring in there. So that's just a particular thing that I've noticed through a lot of the readings that I've done with Napoleon Hill. Like I said, he's one of my favorite authors, and something that he did because he didn't have anybody he could actually meet up with, but he read about so many great people that he would have this meeting every day in his head to allow him to make the progress, right? And again, if you can't find those people, and yes, you have to do rely on yourself because it's nice to have someone there, but they're not always going to be there. So you do have to find these people that are going to help you, motivate you, or uh, essentially coax you in the right way that you want to be going, and not be held back by other people's judgment.
It's funny you said that. One of the things I can say I personally practice is I try to watch what goes on in my subconscious. So I usually when I'm relaxing or about to go to sleep, whatever, I listen to things. Uh, Something I may be working on, something I want to get better at, some information. I let those things. I go to sleep to those things. I relax. I sit in the house, and I just relax and I listen to them. And I think it's important because we let a lot of things go tap into our subconscious. Like it'll be some annoying song, but we'll know the words because we've been listening to it the whole time. That we didn't think that we really were. And I'm really big on that. So like, I think also if somebody wants to work on that, it may sound like hocus pocus, but believe me, it's not. Positive affirmations, you have to do those things. You have to say what you're going to be and who you are out loud to yourself. Look in the mirror, whatever it takes. Because what's more crazy? Something like that's crazy, but what's more crazy to just live a life in the whole bondage of just what people think and never really believe in yourself, or just do it. I've read a book called How Do Successful People Think, and that's one of the things, man. Like people, a lot of successful people connect themselves with other people like that, or they tell. It's what the thing is like whatever you tell yourself, whatever you believe you are, you are.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
you're headed to. If you think you're trash, I mean, or if you focus your energy on things that are just vain or just what was that? Yeah, just things that are just vanity. You're gonna. That's what's gonna happen. So for me personally, it's a lot of things that I know I don't know. So I'm always searching for information. And as I'm getting those things, I may not even understand it all at once, but it's repetitive. It's a repetitive thing. And the way I believe in myself now, I can't say I always believed in myself like this point. Like then, you know what I mean? I think I always had kind of like a confidence. I was raised like that, but
Mhm.
I have the confidence now to do things where it doesn't matter what a person thinks of what I'm doing, and as long as I know that I've checked myself and my intent is good. Because I'm trying to just put positive vibes out. That's another thing. Just putting positive vibes out too. Like if you're putting a whole bunch of bad things out, yeah, you probably get it back. You know what I mean?
It's funny you talk about that because I was reading this book on karma, and a lot of different things, a lot of different gurus and stuff like that you hear about. It should always be positive, but then a lot of the ones that I listen to more now are more being objective, right? Not being good or bad or even neutral, but just kind of looking at things and it might be good, it might be bad. Whatever it is, it is, right? And then leaving it at that because a lot of times you go back to the whole talk about energy and stuff like that and spending energy, right? If you're so worried about what people say, good or bad, right? You shouldn't let the good overwhelm you, right? Because you're kind of essentially you're tuning yourself into the good too, right? And this is a bad thing that all of us have dealt with as kids, right? You're learning if you get a good grade, that's good, and so you live up to that, and that essentially is butterflied into every aspect of our lives. And so if you look at everything objectively, and this is good or bad, whatever it is, I'm just going to uh, live my life the way I want to live it, good or bad, consequences, whatever the case is, but not try to think of it as good or bad. And again, just whatever it is, it's going to be. And even for myself, I try to practice this, and it's hard to explain it and then practice it because I know a lot of times I say that things should be a more positive light and stuff like that. But again, you're tuning yourself, you're programming yourself to think that only in positive, that things only in life are positive, and things only in life are not just positive. There are negative. There's ups and downs, and this is why you appreciate the positives because of the negatives. And so you need both sides of that aspect to be objective about stuff and just take things for what they are and just live a life and good or bad, whatever happens, but it has to be on your terms, right? And not on somebody else's terms. And again, not worrying about what people think is it's hard, but you have to, again, repetition. When I try to do the whole neutral objective thing and not expending my energy, right? Because you have to realize something too. You start expending your energy where you don't want it to go. And a lot of times the different choices that you're making, it needs to be positive, right? Or it's too much negative. you're expending energy, and then this all comes down to other things, right? It starts depleting your willpower on other things that you want to be doing, right? Maybe there's something else in your life that you want to make a priority in your life, and then you find after a long day, you're fighting over good and bad, whatever the case is. You come to a point to where, man, my energy is so depleted. I would like to go work out, but it'd be easier just to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and have a pizza or something, right? And so you're depleting your energy. So you want to try to keep your energy at its highest levels throughout the day. So you're executing on those things that you want to be happening in your life. And by sitting and worrying about other people's thoughts and ideas, that's all depleting your energy throughout the day. All the different options, all the different thoughts and ideas that go through your head. This is why I say about being objective, because if you can be objective, you're not dispensing energy where it doesn't need to go, and trying to be that well-rounded person. Yeah, I don't want to be really negative and I don't want to be really positive, but I'm just going to let life happen, right? And whatever happens, it's going to happen. That's okay. And I'm okay if my tire blows out in the highway. It's okay. Yeah, it sucks, but it happens. Just whatever it is, don't expend the energy. So you realize where that energy goes is to the places where you want it to go, as opposed to sitting there and allowing it to deplete to essentially nonsense stuff, right? That has no meaning behind it. That's not a priority in your life. And it's just something I've come across even more lately. So
I definitely agree. How I look at it is like, with me, I do. All right. What's the goal? Sometimes the issue is we don't have a goal. So when you don't have a goal, you're blowing with the wind. And, you just anything can discourage you. The second thing I look at it is like cards. You know, you get a deck of cards, you're playing a card game, and everybody gets a hand. Now, sometimes we look at our hand and we like, and we're already defeated, right? Sometimes we know, like you said, we know this hand is not the best of hands, but now we have to play with the cards that we're given, and we have to make the best out of it. So that's how I kind of like look at life. Like everybody's going to be given different cards, and we have to watch it because sometimes it's not society, it's not another person, it's us. That's why I said it begins with us, because we can get a bad hand in cards, and we can just it could be just a bad game for us. Somebody else can get that same hand and win. So that's
yeah.
how I always look at it. I'm like, look, these are the cards. Like I'm not out of my mind. I'm glad you said that. When people think that no, I'm not out of my mind. I'm just gonna play with what I got, and I'm
Mm.
gonna make the best out of it. I have a strong belief in I can walk in a room and somebody can say this person's an asshole. They're not. You're not gonna learn anything from them, and I feel like when I come in, I will.
Mm.
And they'll come in and be like, well, how did you get them talking? Because I was talking to a family member about it actually, because I'm not combative. That's not really how you do that. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
got to find out who you're dealing with. Maybe they want you to tell them, oh, sometimes I think even with, I'm just, people want a different conversation. Like, the first thing we'll say is like, if they, man, I don't agree. No, I find what I agree with, and I'll talk about that first. Let them let their guards down, and then we can have a conversation. My job is to come in and get it done. Period. You know what I'm saying? With nothing else there, I'm just going to get it done. You know. And then if I have to walk away from it, guess what I learned? I won't deal with them. So I'm not really out of my mind. When I'm not out of my mind at all when I say it. It's just that when I say positive, I'm just saying, I guess I can reword it. I'm glad you said that. It makes me always, try to find what I can get from it. Like you said, if you blow your tire out, and you're trying to make it to this place, you're going to try your best to get that tire fixed in time. If you can't, you're going to try your best to still repair that meeting. You're going to fix it. You're not going to be like, whoa, it's me, I'm doomed. Nah, you put a flat tire and you're sitting on the side of the road, probably for some other better reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of sitting there panting and nervous, I'll try to fix that.
and I'll work on other things while I'm waiting. Because now I'm still moving. You get what I'm saying? Instead of just be like, oh. And that's what happens a lot of times. I know we're getting all subject with that part, but that's just the thing is just really allowing to get your cards, play with them, and make the best of life without getting all subject. But just a part of playing with your cards and then worrying about what people think. You can't even play your hand right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that support is funny if we're talking about like a game like spades. That support does matter because you have a partner there, right?
Mm.
If a partner's steadily shooting you down, that's gonna be tough. You know what I mean? But if your partner kind of believes in you, and y'all, you'll work it. Y'all will work that thing out.
Well, that's it, right? It's just being able to, you have to create the environment that's going to make you thrive.
Yeah.
And you have to be mindful of that. And a lot of times we feel like we can't, if we remove specific people in our lives, like our environment's going to be completely thrown off. You have to be okay with that. I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people aren't okay with it. Like maybe you're friends with someone for 20 years. You're like, well, we've been friends for 20 years. Yeah, but if you change, right? Everybody changes. To realize that your intentions, your goals, and everything might change. And so this is where it comes to self first. I always preach about you need to look at yourself first. Because if you're rock solid, right? Like some people will not like that just because you have taken things upon yourself. But it's not an intention to be selfish. It's to let me build myself, let me repair myself. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? We all walk around with uh, with demons and everything else inside us, right? Like we don't want to face our own internal self, right? We don't want to face that, and so we look for all these other different things and all these other different excuses to not reflect inward, fix what needs to be fixed, which is essentially self first, right? Is fixing internally, and then you can once you're fixed internally, you can go out and you're stronger, you're better, and you can improve people better. And a lot of times, I think we see is people they're not fixed internally, and so what they're trying to help lift people up when them themselves aren't completely 100%, right? And I'm not saying I'm 100%, right? It's a continued process, right? And trying to maintain. I think anything in life, success, anything is a constant state of maintenance, right? I think you have to always be in that state of maintenance. And
but when they get better,
yeah. And if you don't, then you start falling off, and then you start. And I talk about comfort zones and everything like that. It's to keep that comfort zone expanded. You have to continuously push, or else it contracts, and then you aren't. You're almost starting from ground zero, like going to the gym. I took a year off from the gym because of the pandemic, right? It's like going back, and man, it's like starting from ground zero. And I got to expand back out and do it again. But you have to have the mindset, like, I'm okay to start over. I know what needs to be done. Let's not get hung up on small things. Let's not worry about what other people are thinking, whatever the case is. You just start getting in and start putting in the work again. And again, you might need a reference point. If you don't have a reference point, you need to develop the environment to create that self for you and visualize it for yourself to get you where you want to go.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think one of the biggest things too is just not to overthink things in a sense, and because that's the whole thing about thinking about what others think. Uh, we have that's it. We have people who are very intellectual, right? And they'll use big words and all these kind of things, but they're not really doers.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we let those people talk us out of things, and really they need to get their ass up and do some stuff, right? Um, for
Yeah.
real, like I'm big on that. Like it doesn't bother me because I mean it doesn't affect me because I pretty much when I see it I know it, right? Some people are great debaters and they can talk and say, well, you said this, um, and I'll say, well, look, instead of us talking all day, let's get up and do some stuff. Go try it. Go do it. Because you can
Yeah.
go back and forth, and why this for real is just like when you're in playing in a game, you prepare. The thing preparation is key, right? But then once you get there, it's going to be things that you're going to learn. It's through experience that you're going to learn how to deal with. And that's the thing. Like that's why I'm not. I don't. I'm really big on people like stop listening to the people who feed you all 120 ways or why it can't be done. It just can't be done for them because they don't know. They think the way they think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And that's a good point because a lot of times it goes back to that whole like get into the arena, right, and start throwing your punches in the arena as opposed to listening to what the crowd is saying. And like I think, especially like you and I, we get to the point to like, you're laughing in the arena, like, damn, I got hit again. I got hit again, but it's okay. I'm still in this. Let's keep doing this, right? That's where you want to get to. And
or you talk to people and they have all these things and you're laughing like because not you're just laughing at the thought like you're really out talking me and you're trying to be like I'm this is me personally.
Well, we can't take things serious, right?
Yeah,
you should never take anything serious.
Can't take it to heart. This is me personally. I listen to people, but I listen to people more who are doing things. If you're not doing it, for one, you're talking in theory a lot of times. That's why you think the way you think. You really don't have the understanding that you think that you have. You know what I mean? You're just talking. You just and you're worried about the wrong things. What you need to be doing is figuring out some of those people. They need to be figuring out what do they like to do, and how are they going to do it. Because that's a constant thing with me. It's like, okay, Sean, what's the next step? Now you got to get to the next step. So that's a battle and energy in itself sometimes, especially, we talked about this before. If you don't know it and now you're trying to figure it out, you got a whole task in your hand. You don't got time to worry about what nobody's thinking about or talking about. You got to get it done.
No, I agree with that completely. I think it's just it's being a practitioner, right, as opposed to theory. I mean, there's tons of theories out there, and I'm 100% with you on that because I don't like people that just practice theory and don't actually practice it. And going to what we were talking about before, I think it was off camera, but about being adventurous, right? And I talk about being adventurous and stuff. Yes, I've made I don't display everything that I do right now. I think a lot of people misinterpret that because they don't see it on social media. But I've made huge changes, and I don't think people understand that the gravity, the changes that are being made, but understand that it's practice is what's going to make the change, right? And those people who don't discuss theory, who actually do it, they realize that theories don't work, right? It's all about when you're in the field, you have to change, you have to adapt quickly. And I'm not saying super fast, but you have to be mindful of what's going on and managing your time to be like, okay, well, I can't let this get out of hand. I need to start taking action to be able to do it. And again, a lot of times the theories and stuff, some of them help, but ultimately it's the people that practice, the people that are genuine practitioners of what they preach is what's going to get you the bigger results, and understand that's in your life is what's going to get you the big results. And realize that these theories, these opinions that you're being held back by, none of it's been put into practice, because when you try to apply that theory, it goes to shit, right? So
and I tell people this all the time, man. You know why some things sound good? If me and you in a room and we don't know what the hell we're talking about, honestly, it all sounds good. We don't know. We're saying things that, we in theory, it sounds like a thing. But in, practical application, it's not even there.
Well, see, I think you can tell when people actually put it in practice as opposed to theory.
Yeah.
I think maybe not everybody can tell, but I can definitely tell the people that practice as opposed to theory, because it seems like the people that have theory will give more detail about stuff. Right?
Yeah.
When you're a yeah, when you're a practitioner, you're like, okay, well, try this and see how it works for you, and you try to give pointers like, okay, well, you have to realize it's not going to be black and white. There's going to be a lot of gray area here. And a lot of stuff I try to preach on my channel, a lot of tools and stuff I teach you, some may work, some may not. You may have to tweak some stuff here, but you have to realize that it's something you have to adjust to, right? Because again, we're all coming from different experiences. We've learned stuff from different ways, and understanding in the way how we learn things up to this point, we're all completely different. So you have to adapt things to yourself. And the theory stuff is BS, because you're trying to put stuff in black and white, and stuff just doesn't work
so
that
many
way.
words. It's so
Yeah.
many. It's so. You ever notice it's so wordy too? Or
Yeah.
or if it's not wordy, it's just so. Just do this. Well, how
Yeah.
am I supposed to do that? How does that make sense? What else do you do after that? It's no. It's, I compare it to like I like those books that say whatever for dummies, because those books are like, I like those books. They're real easy to understand.
Yeah.
Fix a computer for dummies, because they just make it real simple.
Mhm.
The theory people, they don't do that. They're it's almost like they're focused on being deep and being smart. Well, in my world, that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. Theory
doesn't pay
doesn't mean
the bills.
anything.
It doesn't buy my kids food. It does not fulfill me in any kind of way. I don't care. You can take your theory and go talk about it all day and probably get nowhere. So you can have that. I need some real things to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So practical steps I can actually take to get to where I need to go.
Yeah, like how do I do it?
But ultimately, I think it's even still then it's adjustable. And people that practice what they preach, they know stuff that's, you have to fix stuff on the fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's ultimately just practicing, trying to get over judgment of people. I know it's not easy, and I know, like, even for us, for change, like a lot of like where we're sitting at, right? Like it took us a long time to get to where we're at, and I know, people have different experiences to where they're now, and so now they may be struggling with this perhaps at a later age in their life, or perhaps not, or maybe in your 20s, maybe in your 30s, 40s, whatever the case is. But ultimately, like, to get there, again, you're going to have to experience it to change your thought process, right? Not talk about in theory. You have to experience it and to change thought process, because you're going to find in a perspective that was like, oh, well, that's it. I really don't have to worry about what they think, because they've been telling me this stuff all the time, and now I've proven to myself that that's not right. Like,
Yeah.
you got to prove to yourself
Yeah.
that what they're saying is not right.
Yep. And I guess it's one of the things we ask ourselves, okay, what's the goal? What's our goal first? Where are their thoughts going to take us? What's the benefits to it? What's the cons to it? What are they doing? But see, it's one of those points. Those like, I think those are some of the first steps. But then once you bypass and you get used to doing it, you don't even think about what you just say. Okay, they're a talker, and at this point, I'm trying to figure this out. So what I do with people, I'm not sure. If I'm having a direct conversation with them, they're saying something, or if I'm conversing with them, I'll just ask them a question. Okay, you say that, so because maybe they're just not articulating what they're trying. What that could be the case, or maybe I'm not understanding. So I'll ask questions. But then when they get to the point, and I'm like, well, okay, this MF is just talking. At that point, I do want to talk about something else. I don't really want to waste time on that, because I don't even want them to implant anything in my head that I'm trying to prove against. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, this person's just talking, and that was okay. How about the game? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, that's a good point you're bringing up, is to differentiate the two, right? Is to ultimately understand that, everybody's got something to teach you, and you shouldn't just dispense someone's opinion about someone, or someone's viewpoint on something, because you could learn something from it. But ultimately understand that it goes back to the whole thinking for yourself kind of thing, right? Like, take what they're telling you, seeing if you can apply it, see if it makes sense to you. If not, then dispense it, right? Don't hold on to it. and think that they're correct, right? To be honest, you and me aren't correct. Nobody's correct, right? It's all an opinion. What works for you, go with that. That's what works.
Yeah.
100%.
And I definitely agree. Creating our own environment. I know we coming up on the hour. This show, hopefully, it will prompt somebody to jump out of the trap or the of just thinking about what others think. As long as it all starts on what do you think about yourself. That's where it starts at. Because if you don't really know yourself or haven't dug that deep yet, that's the main issue in itself. But all starts on what you think about yourself, and then just work from there, man. Go out and achieve all your goals. Go after them. We only get one life, you know. So just live it to the fullest, in a sense. Just live it to the fullest, and go out there and do things that make you happy. I challenge everybody to do something when you hear this that makes you proud and makes yourself happy, and then hit us back and let us know how did that feel. That's it.
Perfect, man. That's a good way to end it right there. So thank you, Sean, for joining me. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Till next time, guys. We'll see you later.
Peace. We appreciate you guys.